Welcome, welcome, welcome. I am your man, Nashan. I am here with the Lightbulb of Higher Thought, HT. What's going on?
That's me.
Welcome to Lessons in Deeper Wisdom. And today we are going to be discussing the power of the mind. Something light and fluffy, something easy.
Yeah. Is the mind light and fluffy?
Well, technically, if you take it, anyway. But it's a light subject for some people. For some people, it's a little deeper. So we're going to start with something light. We're going to start with, we'll talk about what is the mind. We're not talking about the brain, not the biologicals, but what is the mind?
That's a great question. So I'm going to let you answer it first.
Well, technically,
what is the mind?
From a biological standpoint, it's the electrical impulses that flow between the neurons between your brain, the neurons inside your brain, which cause a electromagnetic field to develop, which causes, which we call the consciousness, we think. Honestly, they don't know. They have no idea who we are and how the brain actually works. They can see it working, but they don't really know why it works the way it does. But in most common terms, the mind refers to that part of our consciousness that we believe is us. So my mind is me, how I think, and the domain in which my dreams manifest. So yeah, we're going to talk about what that means and how we utilize that, because a lot of people just think of it as something that is rather than a tool to be used, and some people don't use it at all. They just kind of drift through their day. So,
which is interesting. Which is the part that I never understood. Because for me personally, I have always looked at the mind as a tool in a way, but it was like a fancy futuristic tool.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It was just like something that came from the future.
Well, I can see that. I see, I study Dr. Joe Dispenza. He's an unknown mentor of mine. He doesn't know.
He's a brilliant mind.
Yes, he is. He is a brilliant man. And he studies the brain from a medical standpoint, and biochemistry, and the chemistry of the mind, and manipulates the brain through meditation, through ecstatic experiences. So the science understands that the brain has a direct, obviously, correlation with the mind, and that the mind is something within the brain, but they don't actually know how that works. They just know it is. So
they're saying the mind is within the brain. Is that what they're theorizing?
I think the best explanation I've heard is that it's like the ghost in the machine. They don't really know how the sum of those chemicals make up the human mind, but they just know it does.
It's like asking the question of how or did the brain name itself?
You see something like that, yeah.
Yeah, it's the brain name, because it's like, okay, well, the brain named itself. Well, how did the brain know to call itself a brain? What is this thing? Like, what is happening here? Like, and what does this brain entail? Like, and then we have memories, but they're not like physically there. So they're where
chemically
are
imprinted.
they?
That's the weird part. In the brain, your memories are chemically imprinted into your brain. It's a bunch of chemicals that get imprinted onto the tissue of your brain.
So are our memories liquid?
Well, no, but they're chemically imprinted holograms that your brain creates for you to see inside your mind's eye, because your eyes can't look in there. So it's literally a hologram or an illusion that you create of what you remember.
You do realize you sound just like a tiny bit
crazy.
Yeah, just a little.
Well, most things, if you delve past the surface, sound a little nutty. The mind especially. Like, I get a lot of people, I talk to them about the power of the mind and what the mind can do, and they're like, yeah, the power of the mind, law of attraction, all that kind of stuff. And they don't really believe it. And I'm like, okay, well, science already knows that this stuff works. And they're like, sure it does. And I'm like, sure. Well, let's look at it this way. If you look at any medical experiment, one of the first things that they account for is what they call the placebo effect. So if you have one group of people, when you do an experiment, you give the actual medicine, and another group of people, you give sugar pills. So they don't actually get the medicine, but they all have the same problem or disease. So you're trying to fix it, but you want to see if the pill works or not. So you have this group of people you give the pill to, this group of people you give a sugar pill, and certain percentage of this group actually gets better, certain percentage of this group gets better, except they didn't get the medication. And they call that the placebo effect, where the mind believes it's healed because of the pill, so it heals itself.
Okay, so all right, so then at what point are we our mind? Like, okay, are we in control of that? Is the mind doing its own thing? Like, what is happening? Is that explainable? Like, how is that working?
There's a lot of models I'm sure you can go by. I have my own. I am not a psychologist. Please do not take any of my advice as psychological advice or medical advice. I have no degree, and if a psychologist asks me a question, I won't know what to tell him. I just know what works.
Do I do not. I am not a psychologist. I am not a psychiatrist. I do not have a PhD.
No.
I do not have a master's degree in any of this. Though I have read a lot of books, I have studied, and I have observed a lot of things, so I have an understanding of some things, my own understanding of certain things. But
yeah,
let's take this with a grain of salt. You can have your own ideas, beliefs. Please do not. Don't take everything that I say or we say as
gospel.
Yeah.
Or medical advice.
We're just exploring this topic here.
Exactly.
We're asking questions and exchanging thoughts and ideas.
Well, I have a model, because we all build models of what the world is to us. And in my model, the mind breaks down into 3 different ways. You have the conscious mind. That is the part of you that thinks you're you. Okay, that is the person that says, okay, my name is Nashan. So that's who that person is. That's your conscious mind. It makes up roughly about, I think, in my model, about 5% of your actual mental capacity or consciousness. Then you have your subconscious. And your subconscious is all the stored information and memories and stuff that happened to you, and all the stuff of life, the memories of, what a chair is and all that, resides in your subconscious. Now, then that's about 20%. So that's about 25% of your brain capacity. The other 75% is what I call the shadow. And these are the parts of the mind that are hidden from us. Now, some of them are hidden from us because we just don't want to deal with them. Where they're too scary to deal with, or too traumatic to deal with, or we just don't think it's important. And all of that gets pushed into your shadow. And there's a lot of information in there. A lot of genetic information, a lot of, cellular information that, has been passed down through generations resides in that shadow self. And the only way to actually reach that is through deep self-exploration, which we call shadow work. So that's how my model works. But, you can pick and choose, I suppose.
Yeah, I mean, I would say for me, it's like I view the mind more as like it's like our internet.
Well, yeah.
I mean, but there's like, to me, there's 2 of them. There's the intranet, and then there's the internet.
Yeah.
So the intranet is just more or less my section of it.
Yeah.
Right. That's not connected to everybody else's.
Well, that's
and there's like a separation there. But then within my intranet, there's certain folders and things, and there's the hidden folder. There's the there's compartments there.
Yeah.
Right. Then you got your you got the basement, right? Which, like you would say, is like the shadow. You open that basement door and it's like, uh-oh.
Yeah, there's some stuff down there you don't really want to go through.
Yeah, those are things you go down. Sometimes you go down there and that's when you run back up the stairs. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because you hear that noise.
Yeah, you hear that noise like, oh, nope, all right, gotta go.
The light flickers a little bit. You get a cobweb on your face, something like that.
Yeah, out of here.
Well, and that's the important stuff, though. And that's sort of the thing that, I talk to people about when we talk about the law of attraction and how the mind connects to it, because like you said, we're not just connected to ourselves. I mean, we're not just ourselves, we're connected to everything else. So if we say through the law of correspondence in the Kabbalion that everything is connected, everything is attached to one another, or the principle of the mind, that all is mind, then we're connected to everything else as well, and to each other. So if we understand that, then the conscious mind is really not really relevant most of the time.
I mean, to me, it's like it's like looking at your phone screen, right? I mean, yeah, you got the picture of the apps there, but it's really the settings and the things that's behind it.
Yeah.
The software that you're using.
Yeah.
That's really driving that behind that. So it's like we have our, what is it, like 95% of everything we do is subconscious.
Yeah.
So
or automatic even.
Yeah, they're automatic. So you have your settings that just run. They're programs that are just running in the background.
Good analogy.
And so now you're just operating like you don't. How often do you consciously think, okay, arm, move up, move forward 3 inches? Like I've had the pleasure of being able to in my engineering career to learn how to program the robots that they, like the robot with the arms or whatever that you see in plants and things like that, or painting and things like that. So these robot arms, you have to program every single movement to the T. Right, you have to put in each coordinate. Say, hey, move from this coordinate to this direction, or whatever. Or some of them are smart enough to where, okay, you could put in 2 coordinates and it'll map it. It'll map it. It'll just choose the fastest path to do so.
Right.
And that's kind of what your body does. But you have these innate movements, and some of which are tied to your DNA, which are very natural to you or passed on. Some people are like, oh, you walk just like your father, or you speak, or your facial expressions are just like your mother's.
Right. Because you learned it.
You learned it.
Right.
You know what I mean? And these are innate programs that are just there to click in and are ingrained in your subconscious or wherever you want to place them, and now they just run as programs, as automatic programs for you.
No, I agree with that 100%. I look at it this way. So you have the 3 levels. You have the conscious, subconscious, and the shadow, right? But you also have a division in between those 3. One is the mind, and the other is the brain. The brain is the physical, biological aspect of you, and that contains all your automatic functions, how to makes your heart beat, makes your tongue move, makes your arms go up and down, and all that sort of thing. That's the physical brain function. The mind itself is a energetic field that exists within that. So there you have all 3 levels. You still have the conscious part of the brain, the subconscious part of the brain, and the shadow part of the brain, which is where your trauma is buried. And the mind has those 3 levels as well. So they sort of mirror each other like the 2 hemispheres of the brain, except there's 2 brains, one physical and one energetic, and they both coexist in the same space. So in my model, at least, when you're working towards understanding what that is or what you are, you have to understand that there's more than just this physical brain going on, because that wiring of the neural net is the physical part of the brain, but the energetic field that exists between those neurons is the actual is the energetic field of the mind. I'm sorry, the neurons wiring is the actual physical brain, and then you have the energetic field that exists, that is the mind portion of it. So it's a little complicated, but if you start to understand that, you start to gain an understanding of why the mind is actually a powerful tool, not just for just living in the society, but as a tool to exist in this world. It gives you a lot of options. So like there are a lot of people who say, like, there's a phrase or phrases that go around like mind over matter. People don't understand that placebo effect that we talked about is literally
mind over matter. You said, quite literally mind over matter.
Right.
But I think that's another thing though, and that's what's always been fascinating to me, is how real mind over matter was.
Yeah.
So because it's like we talk so much about the physical brain, but like you say, there's the non-physical brain. There's the energetic field of the brain too that's there, and that's the one that's actually calling all the shots.
Yeah.
In a way, and that's what's creating those neural pathways.
Right.
So it's like it's the builder of your physical brain. So it's kind of, almost to envision, the neural pathways, creating themselves and building, and those neurons firing off, at however fast that is. Yeah. And that's literally like your brain activity. That's what's being measured. That's what's measurable. But then you have this not like this, you can't touch, you can't see it, it's there, we don't know how, I don't know, maybe we can't measure how big it is energetically. But to me, then you're limiting it.
Well, right. When people think that because we can't measure something with the instruments that we have, that it doesn't exist, and that's just not true.
Well,
we just don't have an instrument that'll measure it.
Because when you're measuring something, I feel like even if you're measuring something, you're limiting it, because you're using a physical tool to measure something that may or may not even be measurable.
Well, it's a physical thing. I think the mind it does transcend into the physical. It is sort of it's an energetic field that interacts with the physical cells of your brain.
Right.
Okay. It's created. I won't say created by, but it exists within. The reason I say that is because if you look at a lot of people who have NDEs, near-death experiences, they have conscious memory of leaving their body, moving around in hospital space, seeing things that are happening in other rooms, seeing their own body being worked on, and then when they're brought back, those memories are still in their neural net. They're still in their brain. They have a holographic memory of that, which means the energetic field that is their mind or consciousness, or some might call spirit in some cases, separated but was still connected, which means it doesn't necessarily have to reside in this one space that is your head. It can exist outside of you as well. And I think that is understanding that will give you an understanding of when we talk about things like astral projection, when we talk about remote viewing, which, by the way, if you don't believe in remote viewing, understand that the CIA for the last 70 years has had remote viewing being paid for and has used it as a spying tool. So if the United States government's been doing that for over 70, 75 years, you might want to think about it. Might be.
Yeah. If you haven't seen Men Who Stare at Goats.
Oh, yes.
Watch that movie, and that will tell you enough to send you down a rabbit hole.
I'll do you one better. Watch the Y-Files. It's on YouTube. The Y-Files has an entire episode on remote viewing and the history of remote viewing, and the particular individuals who used to do it for the United States government come on and talk sometimes.
Yeah, I actually spoke about this in one of my workshops before about somehow remote viewing came up, because we talked about astral projection and whatever. I was like, because you astral projection, remote viewing, this, and they're like, wait, remote viewing? I'm like, yeah, like people you can actually sit there and visualize something, a place that you've never been to, because that was like the idea. It was like, well, you've never been to it, how can you see it? I mean, it's remote viewing. I said, well, we subject ourselves a lot to this third dimensional world. We can touch touch and see things right here we
believe it's real.
Yeah, I was like, but outside of that, time and space does not necessarily, like, we're everywhere, and time doesn't even necessarily exist. There's no, you know what I mean? It's the same way that you can have a premonition, right? How was it that you can remember the future if it's never happened? Well, so that must mean it had, like, there's some kind of correlation to where time that span has to go. Here.
Well, there's a quantum curiosity that happens when you're dealing with quantum physics, and they talk about how sometimes you can go to conduct an experiment and get the result before you actually do the experiment. They've had that happen more than once. So that's a whole, we can get into that as a whole quantum thing. That's a whole rabbit hole to go down. But if you understand at least that the mind is not just the meat that's in your head, and that it's an energetic field, then you can understand that energetic field can interact with other energetic fields, thus other people's minds. The reason why sometimes you'll get a feeling, you'll think about somebody and then they'll call you, or something, things like that happen.
You must think about it as non-physical neurons firing off and smacking into each other, and it was your neurons and somebody else's neurons.
Well, think of it like this. We look at the world and we think, oh yeah, we know all the basic science of it. There's dirt, there's air, there's water, blah, blah, blah. We think of the elements, but we don't understand that there is one gigantic magnetic field that we all live within that surrounds the Earth. It's the reason why we have a stable orbit. It's the reason why we have poles. There's a gigantic magnetic field that we're all living within, and all humans have lived within.
It's how animals know where to go, what to do, navigate.
Right. And if you understand that, then you understand that the bioelectric field that you create has a magnetic component to it. and that is generated by the mind. One of the things Dr. Joe Dispenza does is they literally measure the difference between the bioelectric field and the brainwave activity when people are entering an ecstatic meditative state. So entering different meditative states can literally change the energy field around your body.
Yeah, because you're also changing what frequency that you're on.
Exactly.
So, I mean, then you get into the,
that's what we mean when we say change your frequency.
Yeah. Yep. So, and it's interesting because even outside of the mind, I've seen where they will, they can measure the energetic field that your heart gives off. And I think it's like, you can feel, was it like 3 feet or something like that? Yeah, it's like...
Well, because most people don't understand that we give off radiation, we give off light, we have a bioelectric field, we have a magnetic field that we give off, and those things are natural to the human body and the human mind. The human mind is the control mechanism, sort of the programming that controls the body. So, for instance, there's a guy who, one of the things that he does is he goes into the coldest parts of the ocean or into where there's ice chunks in the water, and he'll sit in there and meditate. And people are like, how do you do that? Because if anyone else were to enter that without clothing on, they would die. Their heart would stop and their blood would freeze. But he can go and sit in it, and he can maintain his core body temperature through meditation because he understands that the mind controls the body. Thus, we go back to the placebo effect. When the mind is trained enough, or sometimes even when it's not trained, it can have an impact on how the body functions. You can literally change the way your heart rate. You can change the way your organs function through mental control. And there are ancient techniques that show how to do this. And they're difficult. I mean, they require lifetimes of training. But this gentleman who does this, he's been doing it for 20, 30 years, and he learned from some of the people in the East how to control his breathing, how to control his heart rate, how to control his metabolic functions, so he can slow or raise his heart rate however he needs to in order to compensate for the heat.
That is an insane level of conscious awareness.
It is, but it's understanding that the mind is separate and connected to, at the same time, the body, and thus the mind can control it. And that's one power. That is just, if people understood that more, how to control the mind, the body will. I mean, it says it even in a lot of texts that what they call it spirit. The spirit can tame the body. It's really talking about the mind controlling impulses, controlling what you want. But we've been trained to forget that. Because how do you take power away from a being who can do anything with their mind?
Let them forget that they got the power to do that.
You make them believe they never had it.
So, but that's... I'm not going to go down that one.
I know. That's the trick.
It is. And it is very much so.
How do you convince people to take your drug?
And it's one of the biggest tools or weapon. I mean, really they use almost all of their weapons.
It's not them.
At an effect.
It's not them.
I'm saying them as in. Well, I guess I didn't want to include myself.
Okay, but see, that's what I'm saying.
It's a battle that I think we continuously fight, and I think a lot of it is fear.
Most people want to be led. And that's the problem.
But you got to be led by you.
But the reason they want to be led is because they've been convinced that they are powerless, that their mind means nothing, that their mind is just chaos, and that they're weak, and that they have no power. And that is a lie. I'm working on some pieces that you'll see soon. And one of the first things in it is called the big lie. And the first big lie was that you're broken and that something needs to be fixed. Because once you convince someone that they're broken, they immediately start looking for the fix. And if you tell them my drug, my religion, my mental practice, my cult or club or my gang or whatever is the fix, you got them.
I mean, I think a lot of times when you're indoctrinated with that, it's almost kind of being told that you are never whole.
Right.
And you'll be consistently searching or trying to get to this level of perfection that you are still. It's funny because it's like you'll be told, hey, you're not whole, you need to be fixed, but also you have to reach this level of perfection that you can never actually really attain. And it's like, well, what are we doing here? How do we navigate that?
You can't, and that's the point. The point of setting the bar, one, Okay, I'm going to take a little side trip here, so stay with me. There's a book called A Wrinkle in Time by Madeline L. Ingle. And in that book, there's this force that is taking over parts of the universe. Disney made a movie about it that was cute, but the book is better in my estimation. But A Wrinkle in Time, and there's a portion in the book where they go to this one planet, and it's like a suburban neighborhood. And in this neighborhood, there is a mother, there is a daughter, and there is a son. And the mother is inside baking and cooking. And they're all cooking and baking the same thing. And the boys are in the driveway bouncing the ball, a basketball. And they all bounce the ball at the exact same time, at the exact same rhythm. And the girls are all jumping rope, wearing little dresses. And they, at the same time that their rope hits the ground, the ball hits the ground. So it's one consistent beat. Okay? That is what sameness looks like. And that was the most horrifying thing I had ever read in my life. It is terrifying to think of that much sameness. So if you look
I think that's beautiful.
Oh, dude, think of it this way. There is no individuality. Everyone is the same.
We are all one and you're me pushed out.
Well, right. There's no, it's not a me. It's not a we.
No,
it's not, you're all individuals, but there's no difference. You're all the same. But you don't get to be a part of anything. But at the same time, you don't get to be different. You get to be exactly the same as the person next to you. And that to me is horrifying, to not have the creativity.
Okay, I get what you mean. That almost kind of sounds like a life of prison.
Exactly. And that was the horror of it. And I say that to say this. A lot of this indoctrination that people are going through, where they've been convinced that they're powerless. They've been convinced that there's this way you're supposed to be. They've been convinced that this is what we quote unquote call normal. And so this way of being was pushed onto people. If you go back to the 1920s, 1930s, everyone had a quote unquote way you're supposed to be. And if you weren't that way, you were considered an outsider, an outcast. Nowadays, people are a little more open to different ideas and different ways of being, so there's a little more creativity. And that is being fought against tooth and nail because they want everyone to be the same. Because when people are the same, they can control you. If you know you're supposed to be this way, and we tell everyone if you're not this way, you're an outcast, no one wants to be an outcast. So you give up your power and your individuality and your individual mindset and your creativity in order to be like everybody else, because that's supposed to be the goal. The problem is people did that. They went to college. They did the thing they were supposed to do. They had the 2.5 kids in the White House, the house with the white picket fence. And then they found out it was a nightmare. And it imploded.
Wear your uniform, human.
Exactly.
Wear
That's
your uniform, human.
Put on those boots the same way every day, sir.
Yeah. And I guess we can get personal now. That is a world that terrifies me.
Yes.
That world drives me insane. Even you can look behind me out the window, and I sometimes dread seeing
the condos.
Yeah, the condo. Like,
yeah.
I they were like, oh, that's nice. It was
I could never live there.
There's no character. There's no colors. There's no
creativity.
No culture. It's just
no contrast.
Ugh.
Exact, and that's what I mean. This idea that our minds are supposed to be the same, that we are powerless and weak, and that you should conform to the status quo is the trick. Because if you conform, you have to give up your power to do it. If you stay an individual, you're an outcast, so it can get kind of lonely, but you get to be who you actually are. And that is an infinitely changing, growing, and diverse mind, which can come up with concepts that people haven't even dreamed of yet. That's where your Picassos come from, your Leonardo da Vinci's come from, people who can think outside the norm and create something that didn't exist before they existed. That's the power of the mind to change society, to change the world, to change self. It's all a part of that power, and you can only have it if you own it.
Yeah, and so it's interesting because I find that And I'm not putting me on like any kind of pedestal or anything like that. This is just,
dude, you're badass. Quit playing.
But okay, all right.
I know you, man. I know you.
I've always been a fan of learning. Since I can remember, I've always loved to learn. I always loved to learn about different cultures, different ideas. I didn't care what it was, whether I agreed with it or not. I just wanted to learn more about it. And then I had the pleasure of being able to travel quite a bit too. Even growing up, like every year, I went somewhere different that I had never been before. And that taught me a lot. You know, you get to travel, you get to see other things, other cultures, how people interact with probably areas and even people and food, and your mind expands so much when you get out of your box.
Oh, you mean you're not small? You're not supposed to be like, never leave Detroit?
Please leave Detroit. Now, don't get me wrong. I love Detroit. That will always be home. Like,
always.
Forever. I will rep Detroit everywhere I go. And I love seeing, and it's what Detroiters are everywhere. I love going out of town and seeing Detroit.
Tell,
you
too.
can spot them.
You can spot them.
You spot them. You know,
313 all day.
Yeah.
But go ahead.
But it's sometimes you talk to people and it's like, man, like I really wish you could experience something different so that you could just see and know that there is so much more.
Some people don't want that though. More is scary. More is terrifying. I mean, think of it this way. There's safety in sameness. There's safety in normal. There's safety in being part of the herd. You know what I mean?
Is that really safe though?
No, but it's the illusion. I mean, okay, another part of the mind, one of the most powerful and terrifying parts of the mind is the ability to lie to itself. The mind can lie to the brain.
That is, I think, one of its best abilities.
It is. It can help you through things that you can say you don't hurt as bad as you think you do. You can overcome things using that power, but it can also blind you to all kinds of things. So the mind, one of the powers of the mind is to take something that you experience with your five senses and then twist it into something different. I talk a lot about with my students when you talk about the wiring of the neural net. The neural net is the physical wiring of your neurons together inside your head that make up your brain. The physical cells that wire together. Those that wire together fire together. Thank you, Dr. Joe Dispenza. But it's literally talking about the physical wiring of the brain. That physical wiring literally carries information back and forth. Now, the way it's wired, it's tied through the concept of association. So when you're taught early on what a chair is, no matter what other chairs you see, as you grow up, you realize that thing with four legs on it and two arms and a back is a chair.
Yep.
And you give it that same name, regardless of the different shapes, that it comes in.
A chair is a chair.
The same thing happens with concepts, concepts like love or hate or self. They're all built around the laws of association, those things that you experienced early on, and not just experienced, but experienced and then believed are true. That's the key point. When you take in information, your brain doesn't know what it is until your mind analyzes it and says, this is what that is. That thing with four legs and two arms is a chair, and it corresponds to the memory that we have. So then it says, okay, that's a chair, and then you can go sit in it, you can stand on it, whatever. But when you talk about concepts self and love and hate and all those different things, they're amorphous, and sometimes those things are tied to people, or experiences.
It's emotional.
Right. So as an example, I had a student of mine who she was talking about every time she picked out a guy, she'd pick the guy who punched her in the face. And she's like, I can go into a room with 100 guys and I'd pick the two that would punch me in the face. And I said, why is that? And we talked about it before, where she said, I said, what's your concept of love? And she told me what love was. And I said, what's your concept of a strong man? And she said, strong man, he drinks a little, he likes sports, he's big and he's strong and he's aggressive and he's, he can defend me and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, what's your first memory of a guy like that? And that was her father. So every guy she met matched that image of what a strong man looks like, which she got from her father. And I said, let me guess, your pop, popped your mom in the face every now and again. He was like, yeah, they would get in fights and sometimes he would hit her. And I'm like, so you go and in your mind, you try to match strong man to to that image of someone who hits people, and then you tie that back to love, and then that love is tied to hurt. So you get into this cycle where you go seek out love, you find that guy, he hurts you, and the cycle is complete. So, and you keep repeating that over and over again.
Yeah, those are like the moments of introspection that I think a lot of people
are terrified of. Yeah,
it's kind of like if they're driving. So I like to usually picture, because I'm very introspective, I love to explore my mind, right? I don't know if there's I would say it's a good thing. I would say it's a necessary thing.
I hate it. It's hard. It is hard to realize certain things about yourself that aren't savory or societally acceptable. You know, I used to be, when I was very younger, I used to be violent all the time. And I used to be very angry. That was a young kid who was like, you know, you called me a nerd, I'd punch you in the face. And it was like, you know, it took me years to figure out why I was like that. And it was because I had an experience early on in life where I felt powerless. And so because that experience made me feel powerless and I got beat up, I would have that memory come back every single time someone, quote unquote, bullied me or made me feel inferior. And when that feeling came back of inferiority, I would fight for that little kid. So I would swing because that little kid was scared in the back of my head. That was in my shadow for years. And I didn't realize until I got older that I can't just punch my way through every problem. And once I realized that, I was able to go back and literally soothe that little boy in my head so that I could make him okay to make the grown man okay. You know what I mean?
Welcome to Halftime. Give yourself and your mind a moment to rest. Take a slow, deep breath in through your nose. And slow, deep breath out through the mouth. Focus only on your breath. Take another slow, deep breath in. And another slow, deep breath out. Feel better? Good. We want to take this moment to thank you for listening and watching this podcast. We hope you take something positive from it. Make sure you like, subscribe, and comment your light bulb moments. We also want to thank one of our biggest sponsors that make this podcast possible, Podcastic. Check them out at podcasticlife.com. Back to the wisdom. The shadow work is
freaking hard.
It's very hard.
It sucks.
It's very, very, very hard. Because like you say, there's a lot of you come into these uncomfortable truths about yourself. And for me, it's like when I come upon them uncomfortable truths, it becomes okay, I recognize that happened. I see why I do what I do, or why I am the way that I am, or why I act the way that I act in certain situations or around certain people, or why I attract certain things. And for me, it's okay, is that something that needs to be corrected? Is that something that is serving me? Is that something that has to be dealt with? Or is that just something that's going to be a part of me and I have to accept?
That there's a lot of, that's a hard thing to do. But first step, you have to accept that it needs to be done. Most people aren't willing to do that because that's very difficult to do. You know, I used to say, own your shit, own yourself, or your stuff, own yourself. And in owning yourself, that means you have to take responsibility for the things that you say and do and experience. Nobody is in your life that you don't allow to be. So if you're in a relationship with somebody you don't like and they're doing things you don't like, it's because you're choosing to be there.
It's all the choice.
You know what I'm saying? And owning that choice is a terrifying thing, but that's the power that the mind has. It literally shapes your timeline. Your future is being shaped by the choices that you make every single day. Now here's the fun part. Most people don't live in the moment. They live in yesterday. They live in what happened 10 years ago. They live in what happened, 20 years ago. And they're recycling that pattern we talked about. They're pulling memories from when they were a kid or when they had this bad experience, and they're relaying it to current time. That's why misunderstandings happen. You ever, had somebody say something to you and you completely misunderstand it and get mad, and then you realize they never actually said those words? It's because when you heard it, rather than your brain interpreting the actual words they said, it pulled a memory from somewhere and mashed it to that memory, which said something different that hurt you, but felt the same. And so you mashed it to the words they didn't say.
I was gonna say, those emotions.
Ooh-wee.
When those emotions get involved, it is a completely different ball game.
It's chemicals.
It's tough, you know, and even in the way when I teach meditation and I do workshops and even like one-on-one sessions, 90% of the time it's emotional. It's very, very, very emotional, and that's when you bring the emotions into it and with the mind, and you really dig in there, it gets deep.
Oh yeah,
it's very like muddy, deep, dark, like, and it's like how and like I said, that's when people really get to live in the past.
Yeah,
in a sense, and they have trouble living in now and letting that past go.
How can you let it go? It's part of who you are.
But let it go as in be okay.
But that's what I mean. The thing I've heard most.
Give yourself grace.
Exactly. But the thing I've heard most from people is that, you know, how do I just let it go? That sounds good. How do I just let it go? You literally have to rewire your neural net, because that memory is a part of your sense of identity. It's a part of who you think you are. And we talked about this when we were talking about the principle of mentalism. The belief is the key. Who you believe you are, it will determine how you act, what you see and what you hear. So like if someone says, you know, what's up, how you doing, and you're in a mind state where everybody hates me, no, you know, nobody really likes me, you're gonna be like, yeah, what's up, why are you talking to me, you know what I mean?
And now you just probably have ruined a great situation that probably could have happened.
Exactly.
That could have been a moment where somebody's like, hey, how you doing? I'm doing good. You want to do better? Sure. Here's $1 million. Thank you.
Well,
Walks away.
But that's my point. It's like they can't see that. They can't see that because they literally, we talked about this before, the reticular activating system, the physical part of the brain, it literally filters out things based on your sense of identity, what you believe is true. So when your mind says this is not true, your reticular activating system says, nope, it's not true. So I don't care how many times I see it, it's not true. That person doesn't love me. This isn't success for me. This isn't an opportunity for me. I can't get that promotion. I don't deserve a new car. It says when you believe something to be true, you make it true. It's not that the world is against you. You literally make it true based on the choices that you have. And here's the fun part. The power of the mind, when we talked about the mind being connected to everything else, your mind will literally go out and find the things you want and or need, including people, and attract them to you. The same way as if when your kid is in trouble and you just kind of know, you don't know how you know, but you know, or if there's somebody that comes along and they just give you a bad vibe and you don't know what that vibe is, it's your mind telling you, I'm picking up on something that your reticular activating system is filtering out that is dangerous for you. Get the hell away from this person.
You know, I just thought about, well, two things. so I just thought about, like, okay, like imagine, I mean, like we've already stated, and we know, okay, your mind creates your world. Mm-hmm. Just like this world that we are claiming to exist in has theoretically a gravitational pull.
Yeah, we don't know where that comes from either, but yeah.
Yeah, theoretically, you know, it has a gravitational pull. And if your mind creates a world in this energetic field, that energetic field has just pretend that it has a very, 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 very strong gravitational pull. So whatever you're putting in that mind space, whatever thoughts, questions, beliefs about yourself, like you say, is the universe will bring it to you, draw it to you. You're really literally pulling it in like a rope. You're going to grab that thought process and you're going to pull that in like a rope.
Yeah.
And it's attached to whatever it is, and you're going to pull it in. But also, I thought about movies.
Okay.
So, I am a person who, I love horror movies.
Ooh.
I love horror movies. I like suspense. I like mystery.
My sister would love you.
Yeah, I love them. And people wonder, like, why do you like horror? Even haunted houses. I think haunted houses are hilarious.
I've been banned from a few. I'm not lying. I'm legit cannot go to some haunted houses.
Wow.
I have a bad habit of punching things that scare me.
Yeah. So me, it's comedy for me. Haunted houses it's a comedy show to me. Even horror movies I think are funny. But to me it doesn't scare me, and I don't see it as real. Some people are like, I don't watch horror movies because they scare me because ghosts or whatever, and they're terrified of them because they think that what's happening in the movie is real. Or even you watch a romance movie and people are interpreting that story or internalizing that story as real, and now they're crying. I've never cried from a romance movie because to me they're all cheesy, predictable, and not real.
In other words, you have a trouble with suspension of disbelief is what you're saying.
Probably.
Is what you're saying.
Probably. So it's interesting the way our minds interact with us and creates these worlds where we react to them. So, even to say you watch a whole bunch of Disney romance movies, you're going to have this perception of what love is supposed to be.
Right. That is given to you by someone else. And now it's in your belief system. So now that's what you're going to constantly be looking for, whether it's reality or not. And that's scary. That's very scary. I mean, and it's true. It's true. But people take in information and then they just automatically accept it.
But that's the power of the mind.
Exactly.
But you also got to think we're also inundated with so much stimulation of things that we watch, from TV to movies to radio and whatever.
I don't buy that.
But
here's why.
People take it in.
People use that term. Okay, we start with the false premise that you're inundated with all these things.
Well, you're not. Accept it.
You choose all these things. There is not a single radio that I know that turns on all by itself, nor any TV that turns on all by itself.
I have seen it happen.
I mean, it's happened, but I'm saying, generally speaking, it does not happen. It doesn't turn on by itself. It's, again, I talk about taking responsibility for your mind and understanding. Part of the power of the mind is understanding the power of self-control, understanding that you're in charge. That is the first belief you have to have. It is the fundamental belief in understanding how to use your will or intent. You have to know that you're in charge, and you have to remember that. When you start having an experience and you start jumping into the past about things that happened to you, when this person did this to me and that person did this to me, you have to understand you're in charge of reminding yourself that I'm not in that moment. I'm in now, and now has absolutely nothing to do with what happened before.
Well, yeah, I would agree with you on that. As far as it's, I wasn't trying to say that you're weird. It's all
weird.
A choice.
I'm okay. No, I'm okay. Yeah. I'm weird. I'm okay with that.
No. I was trying to say, because it's, when I say we're inundated with everything, there's a lot of stimulation around. And what you choose to tune into is what will get you in trouble, because now it becomes a choice as to what you're going to, I don't know, fill your mind with.
Exactly. But again, I start with, I have a choice whether or not to turn on a TV, and I have a choice to what to put in my brain. I don't like horror movies because I've done too much research into the occult, so I don't watch a lot of horror movies. But I also understand that that's a choice. I don't have to watch them. I had an experience a long time ago with my ex-wife, and she, I had I won't say a friend, but someone who was calling me repeatedly and would not stop and kept interrupting me and kept interrupting. And one of the things she said was, you don't have to answer that, right? And I was like, what do you mean? She's like, you don't have to answer the phone, because all she's going to do is keep cussing you out and calling you names, and you don't have to put yourself through that. And it blew the top off of my head. I was like, wait a minute.
What? You're right.
I don't have to answer the phone. And when I stopped answering the phone, peace ensued. And I was like, well, would you look at there? I'm putting myself through this for absolutely no reason. And the reason is we believe we have no choice.
I used to, I don't know if I've said this before on the show. When I was working retail, right? I used to work for Foot Locker.
The dreaded retail.
Yeah. And I actually learned this from, I think it was a coworker or somebody, may have been, but I began to use it. So when customers would come in, they would be angry, right? They'd be fussing, I wanted this, didn't get that, or mad about the service, or whatever it is, right? And I was standing there, I would listen, I would just let them say whatever it is, and I would just wait patiently until they were done. And I would go, so why are you making yourself have a bad day?
Oh, they don't like to hear that.
I mean, well, so, most of the time they actually pause. They took a second because I let them get it all out and say, "Why let yourself have a bad day?" And then they think about it because it's
we
not
give power to things.
like, why are you are literally letting yourself get this worked up and angry. You are choosing to be this worked up and angry
Because they feel like they don't have a choice. You made me angry. No, I didn't. You chose to be angry because something happened you did not like, and somewhere in your brain you went, I don't deserve this treatment and I'm angry about it. And there are things you should get angry about. I've always said, and I say this to my wife now, more often than not, I'm like, how much time are we going to invest in this fight or being angry? And it really derails the argument, by the way. If you're ever in an argument with your spouse and you're in the heated moment and then they say, excuse me, 1 second, I need to know how much time we're going to devote to being mad at each other because I have plans for us later and I'd like for us to go into those plans. So how much time are we going to devote to this fight? And it throws things off the rails because they're like, what do you mean? Whoa, the thing you got mad at took 5 minutes to actually happen. It's been an hour that we've been arguing about that thing that took 5 minutes to happen. And ultimately it's because people want to feel. We've been convinced that we're supposed to live this life that we see in the movies where we're jumping off of skyscrapers and shooting bullets and dodging, monsters and whatnot all the time. We're told that that's what life is supposed to be. It's not. The excitement from life comes through actual experience. So when we get bored, every little thing sets us off. Every little thing every emotion needs to be exploded to its nth degree so that we can feel like we're actually engaging in something. Some people can't have a relationship without drama because they've watched drama their whole life.
Yeah, oh man.
So,
listen, I've already gotten on, I'm not gonna name names, but there are some individuals in my life who I've gotten on about watching so much of the Real House.
Oh my God! Please,
yeah,
that is poison to the mind.
It is. It is so bad. It is so bad. It's as I call it, scripted dysfunction.
Exactly. And I'm not as crazy as that, so I'm okay. No, but the line that gets me is actually a Taylor Swift quote. Boys only want love when it's torture. There are people who genuinely believe that. There are guys who cannot be in a relationship unless there's drama going on. So if there's not drama, they will literally go out and create it. And there are women who think that men just love
They're addicted
drama.
to it. They're addicted to the drama.
I am so over that.
Queens, your Drakes, your shots fired.
Ooh, wow. You're going to have Drake coming after you.
Hey, man, that's fine. That's fine. Hey, if you want, we could rap battle it out. He doesn't want it. I got like 3 bars, just 3.
I got quantum physics we can talk about. I don't spit bars. But.
So let's spit some quantum physics bars. Like, how deep can we go with this?
I mean, I can go pretty deep. But like, okay, so if we're going to do the deep dive, let's go deep. The mind. Okay, if my mind is an energetic field that exists in and around my physical body. If I hang around someone who is let's say my mind has a vibration of 7.5 because I am generally pretty happy. I am I live this pretty decent life that I've chosen. I empower myself to a certain degree. There's things I'm working on, but I have a pretty good sense of self. Now, I hang around someone who's got a mental vibration of a 4.2, and I bring that person closer in my world, and that person becomes entangled, my mind with theirs, through a relationship of some kind. What happens to my vibration? The stronger of the two will prevail. Either they will raise closer to my vibration, or I will lower closer to theirs. So now take that, expand that to a group of people. You're a 7.5, but your group of friends, people, close family, whatever, they're all 4s and 5s and 2s in some cases.
You're gonna get dragged down.
Exactly.
That's a lot of weight to carry.
That's a lot of vibrational weight to carry. And expand that out even further to my community. So then you start to wonder, why are neighborhoods like this? Why would people choose to live a certain way? Because the mental vibrational frequency in that area is low due to circumstances and poverty and choices and so on and so forth.
Everything. And I think that's lost. That actual effect is lost on some people of
it's
how powerful it is. So like even on the individual level. So I was working the job. Shout out to corporate America. And at this particular place, it already felt like a prison, right? Yeah. It felt like a mental prison for me. Like, I'm a very creative person. I also love to think. I love to communicate. I love interacting. Yeah. And this place was basically sit in this place, and it wasn't even really, it was a cubicle, but they were like low wall cubicles, yeah. Right? But it was completely silent. The walls were bare. We had one window. It was a floor to ceiling window.
You were in jail.
It was a floor to ceiling window.
You were locked up.
Yeah, but the lookout of the window was not. We worked in an office park.
Yeah.
So there wasn't anything nice to look out the window. There weren't like no nature, no trees. I don't even think I saw a bird. But it was just such a dry environment, and I could feel how low the job itself also wasn't
stimulating, exciting.
Yeah, at all. And and when the workload is heavy, and then you can feel the frustrations of everybody else that's there, and it's just it's hard to stay in that high vibrational mode like you're explaining. Yeah. And then you're around all of those 4s and 5s when you're trying to be a 7.5, and now every day you're there, you're
take a little lower.
You're getting lower and lower into that space. And now you got to think about, okay, if I'm going lower and lower into this space, the people that are already there, how much lower are they going?
That's the ticket.
So if we're constantly going lower and lower on this vibrational level, in the words of the Ludacris, so how low can we go? like where
you can go to such a low vibrational level that life becomes worthless.
Is that where we come into the depression and
hopelessness? Yeah,
unalive me-ness.
Well, and that's okay. Here's the thing. This is what I talk about when I say own your stuff, own yourself. Where you work is a choice. What you do for a living is a choice. How you live is a choice. So, like, I grew up in a neighborhood where I'd say about a good 25 to 30% of the people that we associated with were drug dealers. And I had choices. Granted, my dad made one for me because he pulled out a shotgun and said, my son's not joining your gang. But for the most part, I never saw the point of getting into that life because of the fact that you're always looking over your shoulder. I plotted it out. I thought about it. I said, what do I want for me? So when I got older and I was lost and couldn't figure out what I wanted to do, I said, I need something to shake me awake. I need a challenge. I need something that's going to, shake everything loose and figure out what it is.
Adventure, something.
Exactly. And that's what I mean by owning yourself. I didn't sit around and say, well, nothing came. Most people sit around and wait for the world to give them something, to show them what life is and to give them something exciting. That's not how it works. It's a decision. You choose to own your mind and say, I own this moment. I own myself. So I am going to make a choice that is going to shake things loose and wake me up. Mine was the Marine Corps. It's not for everybody, but it woke me up to life and gave me the power to understand I am in control of myself. And once you learn that and you know who you are, or at least who you are in this moment, you have the power to change everything. Where you work, who you associate with, what your relationships are like, everything becomes a choice.
It does. I remember even with that job, because it was before that, I had a different job. This was right before the pandemic hit, right? And I remember I was sitting at work, and they had moved me to a group where there were only 3 of us. Apparently I was really good at my job, but there was only 3 of us in this group. And I'm like, okay, well, there's me and these 2 other guys, and these 2 other guys are probably maybe in their 50s, I would assume, something like that.
So young.
But they have been doing this for, but they've been, the grades might be there, but hey, they have been doing this for probably about as long as I've been alive.
Yeah.
And I'm like, if I'm here now and I'm about half their age, where's the ceiling? Because I feel like my head is bumping it. And if this is it,
you can keep all of that.
I don't think I want to do this anymore. Like, I'm not excited about this. Like, I don't think this is going to be it for me. And so after that, I was ended up at a different place, which is where felt like prison. And I was like, but there when I realized I was like, okay, yeah, this is not for me. I need change. I actually wrote my resignation letter, and they laid me off before I was able to send it. And I remember walking out. They were walking me out, and I told them that it was one of the happiest days of my life. And I did not lie. They probably thought I was weird, and I was excited. I was excited to be gone. I was like, oh, y'all did it for me? Thank you.
So now I get unemployment and everything.
Like, I appreciate it. Thank you for letting me out of here. My resignation was already written. I'm actually sorry I didn't get to send it. A part of me still wants to email my old manager at HR.
There's no reason for that. I think what we want, we call to us. And I tell people that, that the power, the ability of the mind to call things to you, the law of attraction is not some, hippy dippy thing. Like, one of the things I hated was The Secret, because they told people, if you want it bad enough, you'll just call it to you. It doesn't work that way. It works when you become so much in control of yourself that you can convince your mind to believe that you deserve this thing, to believe not just I want it, but I deserve it and know why you deserve it. And then say, I'm going to go get it.
Because at that point, any question that comes or any thought that comes and says, well, why should you get that?
Because I deserve it. Not because I've done anything, but because it's just who I am.
Yeah.
I deserve success.
Because
I work hard. I deserve to have a good life. And I am willing to do the things that are necessary to get there. When your mind believes these things, it will bring those people, those opportunities, and those things that you need to do it to you.
It's like, treat the universe like Burger King. Have it your way.
Exactly.
Have it your way. You know, and if it doesn't come right, you can call that 1-800 number. This isn't what I ordered. This is what I wanted. This is what I deserve.
One of the most
cut
profound,
that Whopper in half.
Exactly. One of those profound things that came to me in 2023, and Happy New Year to everybody anyway. But one of the most profound things that came to me this past year was, I can't remember who the speaker was, but he was talking about the river of abundance. And he says most people go to the river of abundance, which is the universal flow of whatever you want, everything that you could possibly want. Most people go to the river of abundance with a teaspoon, because that's all they feel they deserve.
I am bringing my portable pool, whatever those giant trucks are that hold water, or the petrol trucks, whatever.
I just hooked up a pipeline, bro. I just saved the time. Hooked up a pipeline, everything. I deserve it all. I want all of it.
Actually, you know what? This is actually mine now. I'm going to build
it's
my
everybody's
establishment right here on the side.
It's everybody's, but here's my pipeline, so that I don't ever have to go back and make up. It's always running. It's always running. And since I decided that, and since I not just decided, but believe it, and believe I deserve that, opportunities just keep coming. They never stop. Ideas for new things that I want to do, opportunities to meet new people, opportunities to get involved in things that that I wouldn't otherwise have been involved in, like this show, have just kept coming. And that's the key to it all. When people talk about the law of attraction, they think it's this magical thing that happens. It's not. It's about transforming self, controlling the mind, and understanding that the mind is your powerful tool to use to bring those things to you. It's not the universe just says, oh, you want a car? Here's a car. No, you decide, I want a car. I move in that direction. I start building up my savings. I start getting a better job. And then all of a sudden that car just pops in my driveway because I got the money to go buy it now. And that's how this works. It's not just wishing, and most people think that's what it is. And they don't need to control themselves in order to do it, in order to get it.
That wishing is more of a begging feeling.
Yeah.
No,
there's no power in that.
Yeah, no, please give me. I want it. Please give me. And then the universe will be like, I'm not even sure that they want it, or that they I don't think they even have it because they're outside of, like, what are they doing? The
fact that you're saying, please give me, indicates that you don't believe you have the power to get it yourself, that you don't deserve it. Because if you did, you'd say, I own it. It's mine already.
I have it.
I have it. I am it. I will get it.
It's funny. One of my friends, she sent me a picture. It's like, oh, check out my new digs, and it was some fancy car in the driveway and at a beach house, like, or a condo or whatever off the beach. Mm-hmm. And I replied, I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. She was like, oh, yep, I'm manifesting it. And I was like, manifest it. I was like, manifesting almost kind of implies that you don't have it already. As you assume that you already have it. I was like, I just assumed that was your weekend place.
There you go.
That's just what you do on the weekends. That's the car you drive on the weekends. Like, you got it.
Don't get me wrong. Yeah. I don't mean fantasize. A lot of people think that means just to fantasize. I'm gonna make a dream board and I'm gonna put it all up and I'm gonna have it up.
Faith without works is dead.
I'm saying I have become this thing, and this person, this being, deserves these things because I have become this thing. I have taken control of my mind. I have decided to utilize my mind to get rid of all the bad garbage through meditation and shadow work. I've decided to filter out the negativity in my life, people, actions, habits, that all these things that are limiting me.
Taking away all the no's.
And then I've decided to move in the direction of my yes, of this thing that I want to manifest.
Because at that point, it doesn't have a choice.
Exactly. And now at that point, the universe is just like, it's a given.
Yeah, you have to have it.
It's a given. Right, exactly. This is a byproduct of the changing of your mind. You change your mind into this belief system, and the universe will reflect that back to you as a byproduct of your own vibration. So I'm a big believer in not just stating but living the understanding and belief of the power of my own mind.
So we're coming up on time. Coming up on time.
Another show, man.
Yeah, right.
Another show, man.
What would be your parting words? Your last little lesson in the deeper wisdom of the power of the mind. The mind.
I would say this: if there is anyone who is ready to truly take this step, it starts with ownership of your own mind. When you begin that process of owning your own mind, you truly begin the process of owning your own life, owning your own reality, owning your own future. It starts with you controlling you. That is where the power of the mind comes in. Short and sweet.
Short and sweet. I like it. I guess I would end off with saying I would really echo something that you've been saying a lot today, which is decide. Because what you decide is going to be what is.
Yeah.
And the decisions that you make are important every single day, and this is not all right, every now and then. This is a moment to moment thing. Like, you're in a state of being at every millisecond.
Yeah.
It
as often as you can. You can't do it every second, but as often as you can.
As often as you can. You still live life.
Right.
Don't get yourself in that hamster wheel of being stuck in your mind.
Yeah.
Trying to run through that. Like, okay, wait a minute. What is it? Even if you got to create yourself, all right, I'm going to write a little script for myself. This will be my affirmations or whatever for the day. However you want to do it. It's your choice. And I think once people are able to realize how powerful the mind is, and not only that, but they are the ones that are in control of it.
Absolutely.
At all times, no matter what anybody else tells you, you are always the one that is in control. I don't care if somebody tells you, yeah, no, I got you. No, you don't. No, they don't. They lying. They're lying. That's the lie, the big lie. There you go. But I guess all else I would leave you guys with is to think higher and follow the light bulbs.
I'm with you on that. I'm with you. Let's go exploring.
Explore. All right, this is Lessons in Deeper Wisdom. The Light Bulb of Higher Thought is out.
Big Nation. Peace.
Peace.